Your regulatory strategy, your indications, what you're going to have to go prove clinically, all factor into what you want to do from a reimbursement perspective. Again, I kind of said at the beginning too, we're starting to see investors asking those questions earlier and more often, which is, it's not just about, is there a code for you anymore? It's tell me how you're going to get paid. Because you're developing a device, you've already got a price in mind, at least a general, thumb in the air kind of, well, we think it's worth 5,000 or we think it's worth 10,000 or whatever number. Well, okay, how are you going to get that paid for? And so typically it's, again, your regulatory strategy can matter. If you can get breakthrough device designation, that can matter. Those sorts of things factoring in, again, it's kind of the whole business gamut. It's not just, well, get through the FDA and I'll figure out how to sell it. Well, no, you're going to think about your sales and marketing before that, your clinical indications, what do I have to go study? And commensurate with that is how am I going to get paid for? And that's where I need the two to tie together. Regulatory and reimbursement go hand in hand.
Today on Bluestock Talk, I welcome Mark Domyahn. Mark is a healthcare and MedTech strategist with deep experience spanning market access, commercialization, and health economics across the medical device industry. As a partner at JD Lymon Group, he advises medical device companies on reimbursement, coverage strategy, and market adoption across a wide range of therapeutic areas. Prior to joining JD Lymon, Mark founded Pursuance Consulting and held market access leadership roles at companies including Medtronic, CardioMEMS, Restore Medical, and Zimmer. He brings a practical perspective on what it takes for MedTech innovations to succeed in real-world healthcare systems and has been a great friend of mine for many years. Mark, welcome to Bluestock Talk.
Well, thanks, Allison. I appreciate being here.
I'm so happy you're here. Full disclosure, I went onto your LinkedIn page today to see what you've been posting about. And I was like, and I think the last post that you had was years ago. And it was a talk that you and I gave together about the breakthrough designation pathway for FDA. So hopefully this podcast gets to the level of you maybe making another post.
It kind of does, because actually it still says Pursuance Consulting, I'm sure, and I've been with the JD Lymon Group since 2018, so it's been that long.
Well, great segue. Tell us about what you do at JD Lymon and your origin story. How'd you get there?
Sure. So I work at the JD Lymon Group. I'm one of the 5 partners, and we focus on the U.S. healthcare market, and we help figure out how medical technologies are going to get paid. Coding, coverage, payment, market access, reimbursement, health economics, call it what you will. But we are the money folk. How are hospitals, how are physicians going to get paid for all the wonderful technologies that all these companies are thinking about and developing? That's what we do. For me personally, I've been in healthcare my entire career and kind of fell into this. There's not a degree or a program for this specifically. You don't major in reimbursement. But I came out of consulting for a while, doing general healthcare consulting, and got a job at Medtronic. And I had some experience way back when, but kind of knew enough about DRGs and other random acronyms that they put me into a reimbursement position, and I've been doing it ever since. So started at Medtronic for a couple of years, did that dedicated, then did 2 startups, one here in Minneapolis where I live, and then also CardioMEMS down in Atlanta, and learned from that experience that depending on where you are in the commercialization stages, or in my case, not, you don't maybe not need a full-time reimbursement person, because it's a lot of hurry up and wait at that point, because there's nothing to do if you're not on the market, or there's less to do, I should say. There's less to do. So then joined Zimmer in the orthopedic space for 4 or 5 years, then left for St. Jude Medical, and did that for 5 years. And then it was time for another career change. And the only thing I had not tried to do, I love what I do. I love the reimbursement space. It's a niche, and I fit that niche pretty well, I think, or it fits me, maybe is a better way to put it. I decided to hang a shingle. So in 2016, I hung a shingle and started Pursuance Consulting, a one-man band of doing coding, coverage, payment for the U.S. market. And started over that period, was busy and working with lots of clients. So I got to know you. And in 2018, joined up with a couple of ladies that I had worked with over the years. So one in particular I worked with at Medtronic back in 2003 to 2005. She had been consulting ever since then. And we started talking and doing more and more. We started doing some work together where we could, and the marriage made too much sense. So they invited me in, and I said, yeah, I like working with a team. I like working with peers, more than I did, say, managing folks, when I was in the companies, which was great too, but I like the peer dynamic better. And so that's what I did. And I've been doing that ever since with the JD Lymon Group since 2018. So it's been just past my 10-year anniversary of consulting, and love the companies and my clients that I work with, and hope to consult for at least the next 7 years until my kids get out of college. So.
Love it. I'm going to circle back on something you said.
Mm-hmm.
You said you love the reimbursement. Like, what is it about your job that you love? Because I don't think a lot of people start off, as you said, like, there's no major for this. There's no, like, I'm going to be a reimbursement consultant when I grow older. Like, what are the things that spark you joy with your career?
That's a really good question. The things that I like about, at least the way I've done it, and again, that in a million ways of to skin a cat, is I like the aspects I like is I can do big strategic thinking about how to move the needle, but I still have to know the work. So I have to do the work myself. At the end of the day, I am a really good individual contributor. So I can do the big thinking, and I like doing the big thinking, but it comes from I have to go read all the rules and do analysis in Excel spreadsheets. Man, I think in columns and rows, and always have. So actually way back when I have an accounting background, and I'm a terrible accountant. Oh my God. I don't do my own taxes. I'm a terrible accountant. But that's how my brain works. So it's a nice combination of big strategic thinking. And I've had the fortunate experience of helping drive companies that have had big exits, and a lot of it driven by their reimbursement strategy, which was driven in part by me in terms of, in working with the clients. And it's never just one person ever, but, helping guide and getting to those, doing the right things. But it's also coming from, I like doing the work. I like understanding the details and then translating them. That's the other component. A lot of folks in my experience, they hear DRG or CPT or APC, and there's a million acronyms in healthcare, especially in reimbursement. Eyes, glaze over, pull back in the head, and like, I don't want to know. I don't understand. Well, I think I've been fairly effective in translating a lot of technical mumbo jumbo into, this is what it means for you. And here's what we can do about it. Here's our opportunities. Here's our pitfalls. Here's strategic thinking around this. So I get a balance of both being able to get my hands dirty doing the work, and then also translating that for, whoever the powers that be at a company, whether it's a CEO or the C-suite, or, working with, colleagues like myself inside companies, whatever that looks like, to help say, how are we going to get our technology paid for?
I'm going to have to put a plug in for like what and maybe this is my experience, because I feel like I am a spoke in the wheel, right? Like there's been so many things where I'm like, I am just a little piece of what companies need to understand their regulatory strategy or understand what they're going to do.
Right.
And without all the spokes, a spokeless wheel is garbage, right? It's probably going to, you're not going to go too far.
That's what spokes are there. Yeah, that doesn't work.
But do you feel like part of the solution to help patients? Like, is there like in the back of your mind, like, I helped people? Or is that like, is it too far? Or do you feel far removed from that? Because I do. I feel like I'm holding on to like, I had a little piece in that.
Yeah, I maybe not quite as fervently as you do. But I like the fact, in my opinion, the reimbursement has been one of the most neglected of the spokes.
Yes.
So you got regulatory, you got quality, you got marketing, you got sales, you got clinical. What I have found, it's changing because investors are getting smarter, companies are getting smarter. It's not so much about getting through the FDA anymore, with no offense. You'll get through the FDA. Wonderful consultants like yourself. FDA tells you, they negotiate with you. What are we trying to demonstrate here? What are your claims? Let's talk about that. The one thing to remember though is the FDA doesn't write any checks. Medicare does, payers do. And if they won't, patients do, right? That's what insurance is for. If I'm going to have this big, extensive, I'm going to have a $30,000 technology put into my body, not many people can afford to do that. And that's what insurance is for, right? That's what the whole point is. So I think I definitely feel like, yes, that's why I like, as long as I never want reimbursement to be the ultimate decision maker. It shouldn't be.
Right.
It should be across all of the business function, what makes the most sense. For a long time, it's probably was the most forgotten or neglected, or it's just complex. We'll figure it out once we get to once we get FDA approval, we'll be fine. And that probably worked 15, 20 years ago. It doesn't work today anymore at all. And investors are asking, what we have seen at least, and maybe it's a self-serving population, but investors their first question isn't about the FDA anymore. First question is, how are you going to get paid? What's your long-term strategy on how you're going to get paid? And right, in my opinion, that's the right question to be asking, because if you can't get paid, you can't get the technology to physicians, to hospitals, ultimately to patients that need these technologies. So
100%.
that's where it's the transitive property. It's good. It's all about the patients. If you're not meeting a clinical unmet need, that's the other thing. If you're not meeting a clinical unmet need, I don't want to talk. I got nothing to say. So it's not about health economics. There's nothing wrong with being Me Too or whatever as a second or third therapy option in a class. That's great. But what are we truly trying to do here with an unmet clinical need? Because it all starts with clinical. If you're not benefiting the patients, what are we talking about?
Yeah. I want to know in 2 or 3 sentences when your kids are off to college.
Yeah.
How do we fix the healthcare system so that you and I don't really need a job anymore? We could just just in maybe just 2 or 3 words, actually. No, I'm just kidding.
Move to an island. Move to an island without an extradition treaty? I don't know.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
There's no fixing our health
trick
system.
question. Yeah, it was no trick. It was a trick question.
Yeah, it's too fragmented, and man, there's too much money in it.
Yeah.
There's just too much. There's too much money tied into it. And that's a concern when and not to go now serious on it, but we talk about the government debt and Medicare and, Social Security, all those things. I mean, I'm scarily enough not that far away from becoming a Medicare patient. I'm within 10 years, and I don't know what Medicare is going to look like. I don't know what Social Security is going to look like when I'm there. I know a year longer than that, but it's that's the scary part. We're spending so much money on our healthcare system. Maybe and then near term, that's good for me, I guess. But from a policy perspective, I don't know. I don't know how it's been tried and failed because there's too many. It's too fragmented. Too many. Someone's got to lose. Right?
Yeah.
In order to get the spending down, that means you're not spending as much. And we can try to spend better, but that's hard. And no one wants to, healthcare's hard, and no one wants to, it's not politically correct to don't touch Medicare. Can't touch that. Right. And you can't touch drug payments, and you can't touch managed care, and you can't touch because there's just too much money involved and too many folks that could quote unquote get hurt. So I wish I had good answers on healthcare. I do not.
Yeah. No, good talk. All right. So
that's a happy day. Again, just move to an island and hope you don't get sick.
Hope you don't get sick. I know it's not the way to live because, I remain optimistic. There was somebody who sent me a thing on Instagram or something, and the woman said, healthcare system is not broken, it's fixed. And she had this very, poetic way of talking about the healthcare system and how it's fixed for some people to make them the most profits, right? And so, I mean, I think your job is so important because you have to, same thing with regulatory, not that I think my job is so important, but I do think that you have to know how to work within the system, right?
Yes.
We have to at least work with what we're given and try to figure out how do we get through this, because it's not intuitive. It's not something that's really easy to understand. And as you said, eyes glaze over when you talk about some of these things. So you have to have somebody who knows, all right, here's where we start. Here's how I can translate it for you. So to make it easy to understand and digestible.
Yep. That's what I try to do.
Love it. I want to do something fun with you this podcast that I've never tried before. So this might not make it into the final podcast, but we're going to try.
All right.
This is a game I'm calling, Is It a Regulated Device? And because you and I have worked on so many fun things together,
Mhm.
and you and I laugh a lot together. Like, I feel whenever I talk to you, it's just a breath of fresh air and we have a lot of fun.
Aw.
So in it's true. It's totally true. And I wanted to play something that hopefully will get you and I both laughing a little
Okay.
bit more than we usually do. So this game, is it a regulated medical device? I'm going to give you 4 devices that may or may not exist, and I might have used AI to write some of these. Maybe not. Maybe
Maybe not.
they're totally copy and pasted. But you have to tell me, like, yes, that's a medical device, or no, that's not a medical device.
So
Okay.
these may not exist at all.
It may not exist at all.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay.
All right. First device,
Mhm.
maybe, is product code NQK, and it's for medical maggots. This is blowfly larvae that are harvested and provided disinfected for use in debriding non-healing necrotic skin and soft tissue wounds, including pressure ulcers, neuropathic foot ulcers, and non-healing traumatic or post-surgical wounds. Mark, is it a device?
Yes. Biobag.
Yes. Okay. So you know this. This is, and I'm going to give you the most recent clearance.
Yes.
K14 2020, the Biomond larval debridement therapy products. The BioBag is indicated for, and you're not cheating, are you? You're not
No.
Googling these things.
I don't know a
You
lot
know
about
that?
this technology, but they did apply for add-on payments at one time, and I believe they were denied.
Oh, no. Okay.
Yeah, but
I was hoping you
in
could
order
add some color.
in order to apply for it, even like they got to be a regulated device. So yes, so I'm one for one. The biobag.
All right. You got 1 for 1.
Yep. By the
Yeah.
way, none of these technologies, even if they're real or not, I don't want them. Like I don't want to have to use the biobag. I'm glad it's there for people that do, but I don't want to
Yes.
have to use that. I don't want maggots eating away my tissue.
I have a sample of these. They're dead. But I got my hands on some medical maggots because I have taught a class where when we talk about the 510K program and like, here's how it works, I use this as one of my examples because it's so wild and people are like, you got to be kidding. Now, I will say this product, this regulation, they do require a 510K, which is, for class 2 medical devices, and for most class 2 medical devices, I should say. They recently got reorged over to the biologics group. So now
Yeah.
instead of a K number, it'll say BK and then it's 6 digits for any regulatory nerds out there. So now it's regulated and reviewed under CBER. So fun fact.
Nice.
All right, this one, you're not going to want to use any of these devices. So
No.
next one is ProCode NBV. It is a clitoral engorgement device. It is designed to apply a vacuum to said part. It is intended for use in the treatment of female sexual arousal disorder. Mark, is it a device?
No.
It is K043480. It is indicated for women with female sexual dysfunction.
Okay.
And for sexual desire and the ability and the lack of ability to achieve orgasm. So that is part of their
Wow.
indications for use statement.
Okay.
Don't know if it had what kind of reimbursement it has, but fun fact.
Yeah, that would be, well, that isn't a Medicare patient population. I wouldn't think. Maybe it is.
Maybe. Hey, sir. Yeah. Maybe.
That's not fair. Maybe it is. Maybe it's all about the Medicare patient.
How dare you?
I don't know. I've not come across that device
No.
ever.
Okay, well,
I've never had anyone describe that are indicated. A device is indicated for the clitoris.
No, I honestly, until I decided you and I were going to play this game, I was like, I'm going to find 4 or 5 crazy devices. I almost achieved because I was like, I got to stop somewhere. There are a lot of crazy devices out there, but that was one of them that I was like, this is a device. All right, next one. The third, product code NRV. It is an implantable radio frequency transponder system that is intended to facilitate access to identification and health information in humans. It is described as consisting of a small implantable electronic microtransponder and an insertion device and an electronic scanner. This sounds like it's from the future. And it includes your health information, and it's 510K exempt. So it does not need a 510K. Is it a medical device?
Sure. I don't know. I mean, if it's not if it's 510K exempt, how are we defining
it? It had a de novo. So back in 2004, Very Chip Health Information Microtransponder System got a de novo, and it is an exempt classification, which blows my mind. So DN040007, and they used to back then give you also a 510K number. It's K033440, again, for the regulatory nerds that want to look this up. But what blew my mind about this one, I was like, this can't be real, is that it's implanted. Like, this is an implanted chip to keep all your health information on you.
Keep your information. So it's not treating a condition. It's just, I don't want to carry notes. I don't want to have to remember my pad of paper or my whatever I keep my notes on. I'm going to have it implanted in my head, and somehow that information gets there. Will I zap myself, or I blink twice to take a picture, or how does that work? So I'm not saying it's not a cool thing, but I don't know why it's a medical device, because it's not solving. It's solving for a problem that I have. I can't remember anything. I don't know when I went to the doctor last. So, okay, remind me to do that, I guess. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. And as a woman,
that's like weird. Why would they get it? Why is it de novo? What clinical study are you doing to get to the de novo on? Hey, it didn't kill you. I'm not trying to make fun of the product. It sounds like it's a good thing. I just don't understand how it's a medical device. I call shenanigans on you. You're cheating.
It's real. It's real. But I like the sort of rapid questions that both you and I have. Like, what? Like, how can this be a thing? How is this?
Well, it could be a thing. I just don't know how it'd be regulated. If it's class, it's also exempt. If it's exempt, how is it
exempt?
It's a device. It's a consumer product.
I have so many questions. Yes. And it's supposed to be implantable with it has a pocket reader, like a scanner. I don't know. It says it has low-powered radio beams sent by a handheld battery-powered pocket reader. Sorry. And so I wonder if it's because it's part of like radiological health, like, but does it cure, treat, mitigate a disease, or it does change the body of man, right? Like it meets the definition there because you're implanting it. Did you watch Black Mirror? Like, this feels very Black Mirror to me, of like you just kind of like beep, like scan your wrist as you walk into the hospital, and like tells you all about yourself.
It sounds very very technically cool. I guess I wouldn't have expected it to be a device, because what are you treating? Usually with the device, I'm treating something, some pain or obstructive sleep apnea or heart condition or something like that. This doesn't feel like I'm treating. It's just a different way of storing data.
I wonder if you could also, does it store your data for like if you have an implant and you have to have those little cards they give you, like the printout, like I have this device implanted in my body.
Yeah, maybe
it's another way of containing that information. Partly my interest in putting this one in here is I'm hoping that there are people that will comment on this podcast and be like, oh, I know this one. Or like maybe someone's got some, tea they can share with us about what the heck this Very Chip Health Information Microtransponder System.
Well, you keep going down the regulatory geek route. My brain goes down the reimbursement geek route. It's like, who pays? How much does this cost, and who's paying for it? Because if I'm an insurance company, what medical need am I treating? You can write things down. That's what a medical record is for. I'm not sure how is it medically reasonable and necessary. I'm not saying it's not a really cool thing. I'm not disparaging the technology at all, but it's, if this is $500 and it's maybe, much more affordable, your flexible spending account, that kind of thing. But if it's a $5,000 or $10,000 implant, I'm just curious how my brain goes to the reimbursement side of it. Who's paying for it and how much?
Yeah.
And if it's implanted, someone's got to implant it, right?
Someone's got to implant it.
That's a healthcare professional of some sort, I would think, at least a nurse practitioner.
I hope so. Are they? It's like a home kit. You just like jab your.
Yeah. Maybe it's like Ozempic or something. It's like the GLP-1s. You just stick yourself in the belly, and there it is.
There, you gotta know where you put it. I wonder if this is kind of like, is it like the microchips we put on our pets?
Yeah, my dog has one of those.
Yeah, right. In case my dog runs away.
Yeah.
my geriatric dog. I Okay, so we have more questions than answers on that one. But
Yes.
yes, that is a medical device.
Wow.
Quick, we're gonna put a pin in this game for a second because I want to ask you something based on what you just said. Like,
Yeah.
who pays for stuff like this? So if there's a really cool idea, or like even people using these note takers or transcription, in hospitals,
Mhm.
like I'm with the Kaiser Group. This is not sponsored by Kaiser, but like they'll implement new tools or implement things within
Mhm.
the hospital or like when
Mhm.
I check in.
Right.
And I'm assuming, I mean, I'm paying for it or they're paying for it through my, you know,
Premiums.
payment to them, premiums.
Mhm.
But like, when is it a good idea? Like, who pays for these things? Like, for cool new technology that might not have like a perfect reimbursement code, is it just like the payer decides, like, yeah, this is good for our patients to stay healthy?
That's a good question. I guess it depends. My favorite answer to every question you're going to ask me for the rest of this podcast, it depends, right? It
It
depends on what we're
depends.
talking about. So if it's like process flow improvement at the hospital, so who's paying for that? That's the hospital. The payer's not going to pay additional money probably for that. But, payers can certainly pay for programs, especially if you're self-insured, you're working for a company where they'll say, we'll give you a discount on a gym membership. We'll have wellness people. You can call a coach or versus going to your doctor because it's cheaper for us to do that. So payers can get involved in helping fund some of those things.
Mhm.
So it will depend on what you're talking about. But, and this is one of the questions we ask our clients when you're talking about technology. Let's just start at a high level. Is it implantable or insertable, or are we talking capital? Capital's not
Mm,
really paid for in the U.S. healthcare system. Okay.
I
So
did not
I'm
know
going to
that.
sell a robot. That's great. Do you have disposable components on that robot? Because if you don't, like everything's reprocessed or, that kind of thing, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, well, then it's not a reimbursement play. There's nothing to be done. They can still build a procedure, but there's no extra money for robots is in my example. So,
Mhm.
it sort of depends on what services that the extra services or new services that are being provided. But if it's a new technology that's going into my body, typically, or potentially externally, like a durable medical equipment when it's non-invasive, you can get potentially paid for some of those things. But if it's, something at the hospital, it's a better process flow, or is maybe, or other examples similar to that. It's typically not,
Yeah.
the payer's not paying extra for that. Um, you
But
know,
it's but to the point of health economics, it would make sense for them to implement that because that will hopefully reduce the
yeah, I
costs
mean,
on
in
there.
terms of hospital efficiency, so that would be a hospital thing. If from a payer perspective, I think of Medicare Advantage. If you're
Mhm.
familiar with Medicare Advantage, it's basically where Medicare age eligible patients can opt in. It's their choice. And it's basically that the government outsources the care of those patients to private insurance companies. Okay. And Medicare Advantage can pay for things that Medicare cannot pay for. So Medicare Advantage, for example, might have a drug benefit. Medicare has a drug benefit, but you could potentially get more on Medicare Advantage side, or can pay for hearing aids. By statute, Medicare fee for service, traditional Medicare cannot pay for hearing aids.
Hmm.
Okay. So like they can pay for some of those extra services, and they may do that saying, well, I'd rather spend an extra $30 for Silver Sneakers membership because that helps keep that patient healthier and moving is so important, right? As soon as I get sedentary, bad things start happening. So keep you moving, and I'll pay the $30 extra a month or $50 a month so that there's an incentive for you to go, because I know it'll offset the cost. When I'm at risk as a Medicare Advantage plan, I need to keep, patient Mark Domyahn moving as fast, as much as I can, because as soon as, I keep him healthier, I'm going to make more money long-term. So spend a little to gain a lot potentially. So it all depends on the type of services that we're talking about.
Yeah. Fascinating. So, I mean, and it kind of gives more or prefers things that have the razor blade kind of. What is
Oh
it? Like
yes.
you have a
Yeah.
razor
The,
blade?
the
I
razor
don't
razor
know.
blade model, the razor you give away, or you
Yeah.
put the late, from a reimbursement perspective only. Not, again, this is where other business factors in and how you're going to sell it
Right.
and what's the value prop and who's the value prop to, all that good stuff. But all things being equal, and from a pure reimbursement perspective, I'm working on the razor blade, not on the razor, in
Hmm.
terms of try to get, do I need new codes? Can I get incremental payment? What's the payment rates today? That kind of stuff.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. I liked that little side quest that we just took. All right. Last but not least, you are 2 for 3 now, which is pretty good. Last one is product code NRK, which is an olfactory test device. It is used to determine whether you can't smell anymore. It includes one or more smells that are presented to the patient's nose and assesses the patient's ability to perceive those smells. It includes an instruction book, a booklet containing 12 encapsulated smell strips, and instructions for scoring the test, and a physician information card. Mark, is this a medical device?
I'm going to say no, but I'm sure it is.
It is!
Yeah, you said yes on all of them. And I'm like, plain the odds, there's going to be one that's not in there. Cause I'm like, wait a minute. Here's your take home test. And I'm not, again, it probably works really well. Here's whatever the scents are. And I'm sure there's like a couple of really good ones in there, like skunk and, wet dog, versus, caramel rolls or fresh baked bread. Like, okay, that kind of stuff. But I scored my own test. Okay. I know. I'm sure it works really well. I guess it's not that, but it's okay. It feels like more over the counter to me than it is a prescribed medical device, but maybe not.
I feel like this would have been so helpful during COVID. Like there was so the most recent 510K for this is K051653, which means it was submitted back in 2005. So someone was thinking about, hey, smells are important, and especially if you lose your sense of smell.
Oh yeah, for sure.
This is also 510K exempt now. So it is, you can sell a booklet and it will tell you if you don't have your sense of smell. Now, people are going to think that's nuts, right? Like, oh, what do you need your sense of smell? Well, my husband studies olfaction. And one of the things I didn't realize about people who, lose their sense of smell or they have anosmia for some reason is that it can be so dangerous because you can't smell a gas leak or you can't smell something that's potentially harmful, and you just go about your day and it could, make you sick or die.
Well, and isn't most of taste actually related to smell?
Yes.
More so than the, salt and what bitter that the tongue tastes. It's like food becomes less enjoyable, like a good meal, well cooked, whatever, steak, bread, whatever. But it's like, I know losing any sense would be awful.
It's terrible. I totally agree.
Yeah. So cool. But it's exempt now. So I wouldn't need to, if I'm an exempt device now, that mean I can sell it over the counter, right? I don't need.
I don't know. I don't know the exempt, because usually there's, part of the regulation that'll say when it exceeds the limitations of the exemption. So I'm not familiar with.
So it depends. That's your answer.
It depends. My answer is it depends. Anyway, all 4 of them were correct. And I thought I was very careful as thinking, I'm like, I shouldn't make any of these up, because if anyone takes anything from this podcast and they're like, did you hear there's this device? And then it wasn't real.
I didn't think about that.
So I decided I was going to hedge my bets and just make sure that all of them were real. So if anyone was only half listening,
those 4?
Honestly, like 20 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Because well, one of the things I did for the last 2 was I went to the de novo database that's on the FDA's database, and I reversed the order of grantings, and I found like the early ones, like the early aughts when de novos were first out, and some of those were just like, what? There's some other ones that I was like, I don't think I can talk about that live. Like the closest one I could get to was the Eros one that I'm like, well, that's, relatively PG. Sure. And big shout out to Donna B. Tillman, because she was the one who's like, her name is on so many of these. Like she was signing off. And Phil Phillips, like all these folks that have left FDA now and are big names in my field.
Nice.
So thank you to them. Thank you, reviewer.
Indeed.
Okay. Thank you for playing.
I didn't pass, all right.
Yeah. I'll send you a sticker, maybe.
Okay. I'll take a sticker. I'll put it right there. Right there.
All right, I'm really here for it.
That's right.
Mark, I'm going to ask you, now we're going to move on to the segment that I ask of all my guests. Is I would like to talk to you about a medical device or some sort of MedTech that has either personally benefited you or improved your quality of life or the quality of life of someone you love.
Well, I can actually answer it for both myself and for my father. My father, about 20 years ago, was on a bike and took a nasty spill and shattered his right leg. And now, as a result, when he has an X-ray, my dad's now 90. He just turned 90 this year, so he would have been, I don't know, 70 or so. I can do simple math. When he wiped out on his bike and hit a slick spot, and it was nasty, right? And you don't like to break bones when you're that age, any age, but especially as you get older. And the orthopedic surgeon put him back together again, and he had to have a recent hip replacement on the other side. And he's like, wow, we don't have to touch the right side because it was, just, you get the X-ray and it's nothing but metal. He's like, they did a nice job. They look great. Again, 20 years later, my dad exercises all the time. He's in really good health especially for a 90-year-old. And his left hip wore out. And so they did that, and he was walking within 24 hours.
Amazing.
Yeah. And we did a little research, and, it's bringing back my orthopedic days in terms of a posterior versus an anterior approach. I suggest everyone look into the anterior approach because it's more skilled for the physician. So you got to find the right surgeon. It's all about the surgeon in orthopedics. No offense to any of the device companies. The surgeon is so important in that, but it cuts through less muscle. And we had it all explained. And my dad, instead of going to a rehab facility for 3 weeks, was up and running and home, and next day. It was great. It's fantastic. And
running? Running.
No, not running. But he walked. Yeah,
but
not
up and running. You meant a figure of speech. Okay.
Yeah. So, but he was out of the hospital within, I think he was there one night. And, you got to make sure you can do everything. Getting up and down from the bathroom by yourself is the biggest test. Once you can do that, he was good to go. And that, to me, was still, even coming from the orthopedic space, is just amazing between what the surgeons and the medical technology, like, if they still have to have, again, the technologies that are there, where it's Stryker, DePuy, Zimmer, name your orthopedic company, man, they make amazing stuff, and it works so well. I mean,
that's awesome.
You get a hip replacement, your chances of having to need another one, barring a freak, kind of accident or some crazy infection, which hopefully doesn't happen very often. It doesn't happen very often. I mean, hips last forever. Knees are a little different, but anyway, the orthopedic space is just, what they can do is unbelievable. I broke my leg, got on a ladder and fell off. I recommend that to no one. Ladders can be very evil.
Yeah.
And it is 100% user error, so it is my fault. But they had to put my leg back together, and I had a couple complications, and so I had multiple surgeries on my leg. But they, you wouldn't know. I wouldn't know without telling people. Like, you wouldn't barely see a scar, and I can still run and play basketball and play soccer, and all poorly, by the way. But I played poorly before the accident. I play poorly now, so that hasn't changed. So it didn't help me. I can't, I don't make any neat, $6 million man noises. I know, dating myself with that reference. Huh? So when I run, I'm not doing the do thing. Yeah. I wish I asked for that. They said they can't do that.
They can't do it.
It would have been nice to run the slow motion and make that noise. Although maybe to everybody else, it looks like I'm running in slow motion. So I just put that noise in my head. But yeah, fortunately, I guess, knock on wood, I haven't had, I don't have families that have to have pacemakers and defibrillators, more invasive things. And those are wonderful devices. I mean, you name the device, they're all fantastic. TAVR valves and surgical valves and pacemakers, defibrillators, and on and on and on. But more specifically, personally, it's been orthopedics for myself as well as my father.
Well, and I think it goes back to what you said earlier, is like, as soon as you stop moving, right, or you become sedentary, that can be very dangerous, right? Like, the decline it can be rapid. It's your heart, your, like, everything really hinges on movement in some way. Like, so that's really cool.
We were built to move.
Yeah.
So you gotta keep moving.
Yeah. What do you think? So, based on movement, and the need for it, what do you think about some of these exoskeletons and devices that help folks who are either like paraplegic or able to walk again, or stroke patients that have had a stroke or spinal cord injury?
Yeah, I think what I've seen so far, and I'm familiar with Rewalk and a couple of the others. I think what they're doing is amazing. And I think what's interesting is some of those things, especially when it's external to the body, the reimbursement systems aren't set up for, that durable medical equipment reimbursement is very different than I have a brain computer interface. And we've seen companies that are doing stroke rehab, like I think it's called Mobia now, previously microtransponder. And there's others that are going down that pathway for, like you said, spinal cord injury or stroke rehab or whatever it is. It's fascinating stuff. And it's really cool because, again, I'm stuck in a wheelchair, which, okay, it is what it is, but I can actually move and operate. And, there's a significant difference. And I've seen some patients with the Rewalk device in person at a couple of conferences, and it's just, there's no dry eye in the house because it, could,
Yeah.
but for the grace of God, go I, in terms of if it were my child or myself or my spouse that, had an unfortunate accident or whatever, where they can't walk again, like being able to be mobile is massive. So,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of potential with the brain computer interfaces and what they can and will be able to do someday. They're going to have their own, with any new technology and any new therapy area, they're going to have their own sets of opportunities and challenges from a reimbursement perspective, to get, paid at the level that they want to get paid at. So,
Yeah.
fascinating stuff though. And especially stroke rehab. I want to be able to move my arms and legs again. A spinal cord injury, again, mobility. I don't want to be paralyzed from the waist down. If there's a way to get some movement back, to get some activities that, again, maybe not running anymore, but at least be able to, with the help of a cane or whatever I need to be able to get out of that chair for long periods of time. That's massive.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen some of the videos of folks that'll, there's like facilities where they'll have the Adelante or Adelante X, I think it is, and they'll have them stand up and walk around, and the partners there crying and saying like, I didn't know you were this tall, and like, I mean, it's just it's pretty phenomenal to watch that, and also know that, hey, if it can get people back their mobility, I mean, we think about what we've been able to do in the past 10 years with technology, 20 years, like, hey, I'm very excited to see where the next decade takes us. So
for sure.
Yeah. Super cool. Well, thank you for sharing those two. And I agree, orthopedics near and dear to my heart, because I feel like that's what I did at FDA, and I would get so excited when I'd see some new technology or something that, hey, this person, didn't have 3 vertebra, right, because of some sort of traumatic experience, and just looking at some of the clinical results for these things and seeing that people could move, they could stand up again, they were able to pick up their kid, like, I don't know, that stuff is very important. So
for sure, that's great stuff.
Yeah. Well, cool. When should people talk to you? I want you to maybe end on, how do people find you, and when should people find you? Because I think a lot of the MedTech folks that listen to Bluestocking Health content and also Bluestock Talk are like, don't know what they don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the general rule of thumb is when you're starting to talk and think about your regulatory strategy for a technology, that's when you need to start thinking about reimbursement, because your regulatory strategy, your indications, what you're going to have to go prove clinically, all factor into what you want to do from a reimbursement perspective. And again, I kind of said at the beginning too, we're starting to see investors asking those questions earlier and more often, which is, it's not just about, is there a code for you anymore? It's, tell me how you're going to get paid. And, because you're developing a device, you've already got a price in mind, at least a general, thumb in the air kind of, well, we think it's worth 5,000 or we think it's worth 10,000 or whatever number. Well, okay, how are you going to get that paid for? And so typically it's, again, your regulatory strategy can matter. If you can get breakthrough device designation, that can matter. Those sorts of things factoring in, again, it's kind of the whole business gamut. It's not just, well, get through the FDA and I'll figure out how to sell it. Well, no, you're going to think about your sales and marketing before that, your clinical indications, what do I have to go study? And commensurate with that is, how am I going to get paid for? And that's where I need the two to tie together. Regulatory and reimbursement go hand in hand, because I need, again, if I can't get through the FDA, I don't have a product I can sell anyway. But FDA doesn't,
at least in the US.
Yeah. Good point. But it's if I can't, FDA doesn't write a check, so that they tell me I'm safe and effective is great, but a payer might go, I don't care. You're not medically reasonable and necessary. I'm not spending that kind of money for you because I don't believe you work. And FDA, for payers, heard this too often, is, that's table stakes. They're like, we don't care that you're PMA or 510. I mean, yeah, they care a little bit because PMA has a higher level of evidence that you need to do it, but it's like, that's how I start the conversation. Say, yeah, we're assuming you've got FDA approval. I'm not going to now tell me now that's their bar. Our bar's up here. Show me the evidence here. Great. The FDA made you do a 6-month endpoint. I need 2 years minimum, for durability, that kind of thing. Cause they're the ones writing checks. So that's where I want to understand what's it going to take for the FDA? What's it going to take for payers? Because they are likely not the same. And you may make different choices knowing I might do the bare minimum to get to market. That's nothing wrong with that. As long as you understand that, I've had too many clients over my years say, well, I got to get to market as fast as I can. I'm going to collect a bunch of real world evidence, and then I'm going to go back and get a new code and I'm going to get higher payment. And my answer to that is not, it depends. It's good luck.
Yeah.
I've pulled some rabbits out of hats before. I have not ever been able to pull that one off, and I'm not aware of someone else either. It doesn't work that way. So, that understanding what you're walking into is knowing is half the battle, to quote G.I. Joe. Growing up, I just watched a lot of G.I. Joe.
I did too. I loved it.
Knowing is half the battle. That's half the battle. So I want to know what I'm walking into.
Little PSAs at the end, man.
That's right. And then I can make business decisions. We've had clients that have changed their product design before they've finalized with the FDA to be existing reimbursement as well as being out of existing. I want to control my own. I'm worth more than what the current code pays. I need to change my device, change my procedure so I can go get new codes and so I want to know what my destiny can be, and I want to control them as much as possible. So long-winded answer to a very short question is, when you're thinking about your regulatory strategy, you should probably, in our opinion, be thinking about your reimbursement strategy too, as self-serving as that sounds. But whether it be us or someone else, whoever you're talking to, get that strategy when you're thinking about, what do I got to do with the FDA?
Love it. And how do people find you?
Well, I'm assuming my name is going to keep showing up here. So it'd be mdomyahn at jdlymon.com, jdlymon.com. And happy to talk to anybody at any point. And, if I can help you, I will do my best to help you. If I cannot help you, I will raise my hand right away and try to get to someone who can.
Love it.
Because I can't do everything.
And I have appreciated, for the folks that I have sent your way over the years, I have had 100% success rate of them coming back being like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for giving us Mark's information. Good. Yeah. So thank you.
Well, hopefully it's not just the ones who liked me. The ones who didn't like me would have said something too. But
I mean,
it's not a self-selecting
I think sometimes
group, right?
we give advice that's hard to hear at times. And I think, what is the quote? Clear is kind. I'm not always good at living that truth, but I do feel like in that case, especially for regulatory and especially for your person, it's like, clear is kind. What are the ways that we can say, hey, if you can kind of pivot or as you said, like, not that I want people to redesign for FDA or for the CMS, but it's so important to, like, at least put that into your strategy.
Well, and I mean, one of the things I've watched in my space, particularly over the years, where people like, no, the answer is no, you're not going to do this. You got to go do a 5-year, 5,000 patient randomized controlled study with superiority, or we'll never get covered. Like, no, we're not doing that study. No one's going to do that study for a medical device. So it's trying to figure out a way to yes within within reason. And so sometimes the answer is obvious from space. To quote a former partner of mine, that says, no, like the answer is the answer. And so we're going to tell you what you need to hear, not always what you want to hear, because we don't want to say it. Who likes to give bad news? If that's how we define bad news,
right.
Talked to a client 2 weeks ago, and they called and they said, for what they were doing, and it was in the hospital setting, and it's in the ICU that they're doing this, and it was a wonderful technology. And 15 minutes in, he said, what do you think? And I said, you don't have a reimbursement problem, because there's no way you're getting paid separately, because this is the way the systems work. And we spent 5 or 10 minutes on that.
Yeah.
And like, that's good and bad. And bad is like, if you were hoping to get separate payment, but no one gets separate payment for this. So now I don't have to worry about coding. What's your value prop to one entity, the hospital? There's something beautiful in the simplicity of that, versus I got to work with physicians, I got to work with hospitals, I got to work with payers. No, you're just selling to hospitals, because you've got a better mousetrap. Nothing wrong with that. You can build a big business that way if you've got the right mousetrap, right? So that's, just try to cut to the chase right away in terms of, we've got some opportunities here or not. So that's, I'm too stupid to lie, and I'm just going to tell you what I think, and then we go from there.
Well, I have enjoyed laughing with you and listening to your sage advice. Again, thank you so much for joining me today on
Thanks for
Bluestock
having me.
Talk, and I can't wait to have our next conversation.
Fantastic.